Torches. Hey guys, welcome back to Navigating Neva, all things aquatics, and today is our special for May 15th, which is National Water Safety Day. And today we're going to flip the script. I'm giving Wes the honor of interviewing me.
That's right, everybody. Get ready. It is very special. It's raw, it's unique, but it's personal. And really, what we're trying to do is give some background on Nicole and what she's experienced in her life and why she believes what she does, and how she's developed her fierce approach to water safety advocacy and her work. But as we get into her story, I want to do a few things. I want to set the environment. I want to set the day up for you as a listener. I want you to know what the day was like, what the world was like with the hot, sunny environment in the camp, and all the things that were happening during the event. And then second, I want Nicole to have a really good opportunity to talk about the experience afterwards, right? When this happened, it was 20 years ago. We didn't have the tools and resources that we have now. So really pay attention to the experience that Nicole went through. I've been through it. Many of the audience might have been through, and what that time was like when maybe you didn't have the support. And then the last part is we're going to talk about, and Nicole's going to talk a lot about what's happening now. What is changed from today to now, and what maybe is in place that would help her experience and your experience be better should there be an incident. And that's my last note before we get into all the fun questions is drowning, non-drowning, near fatal, fatal. Here's the point. The person that this happened to is alive, they're survived, they're okay. 20 years ago, we didn't have the terminology for what is a near drowning and a fatal drowning, all the things. So really, as you're listening to Nicole, listening to her story, understand that this is personal. Understand this is real. And understand this has happened to many of us listening. And so put yourself in her shoes and think about what you went through and how you've had to adapt and adjust your work in the aquatic industry. So that's my opening message. I hope that helps. And let's start there. Nicole, help us set the tone for that day in your environment when you were lifeguarding in the chair in the middle of the summer with camp, with hot days out, hot sun. Tell us more about that day and what you went through.
Yeah, well, first I want to say thanks, Wes. I've trusted Wes with this story, and I've held on to this story for years, like 20 years to be exact. And it's not out of shame, but it's because it's heavy, and I feel that I'm finally in the right place, in a safe place to share this story for something good. So I am going to set the stage. I was 21. And I had been guarding since I was 17. I had been a lifeguard since I was in 10th grade. And we usually don't interview me on the podcast. We usually interview others. And if you listen to series one, I did a lot of talking about myself and personal stories. But I got into aquatics because I didn't even want to be a lifeguard. I had applied everywhere. I mean, I applied at Burger King, I applied at Foot Locker, I applied at Lady Foot Locker, and I was driving down the road with my dad in the car, and the YMCA marquee said lifeguard. I think it just said ARC lifeguarding class. And my dad said, "Hey, I'll pay for that if you want to take it." And just like with my PADI scuba diving certificate at the same pool, same Y, I said, "Sure, why not?" And before I was done, the boss interviewed me. I didn't know lifeguarding was a job, and I got the job because I took the class. And after all the jobs I tried to get, I didn't even know that was a job, and here I am still to this day with my Red Cross lifeguard certificate. So that day, I had been a lifeguard for many years and a long time, and I was proud to be a lifeguard, and we'd never had a drowning. And I know, some places you work at, you're a wet guard and you're in the water all the time, and other places there's rules, and there's so many of them that nobody gets in trouble because there's so many rules in place. So this
Right.
was
How could someone drown if we're all following the rules, right? Yeah.
Right. And this was a new place, and this was a new team, but I wasn't with a lot of novice people. Like my team we had retired people, we had stay-at-home moms, we were near an army base, and this was a year-round facility, and I'd always worked for a year-round facility. But so I was 21, I wasn't a baby guard, and I had years of experience, and it was a busy day, it was a camp day. So it was a great day. And it was camp, and I loved camp. So on this particular day, there was three guards up. I think there might have been four. No, there was only three of us on duty, but I got to get up and get down, or that third guard got to get up and get down. And this was 20 years ago because we'd open the slide when camp come or when a family wanted it. So I was at the slide, which also meant I got to read the rules. And reading the rules was my favorite. So the camp kids come out on deck, gathering all their stuff, dropping all their stuff on the floor. And I close the slide and I go over to the bleachers. to read the rules. And I get to close the slide because there's one guard and they're covering the whole pool, and there's another guard and they're doing the shallow end. And they don't move. They're covering their zones, and I go over to the bleachers, and I thought reading the rules was the coolest. Some of the
Hmm.
guards don't want to talk. Some of the guards don't want to talk to kids. And I would read the rules, and I thought I was clever. I'd say no running, and they'd repeat after me, no running. And then instead of saying no running, I'd say walking only. And then they'd say it. And then I'd say no hanging on the lane lines, and they'd repeat after me. So I had this whole thing memorized, and I'd write them down and I'd laminate them. So that's what the day looked like. And right after that, yes.
Well, and I was just going to say to kind of take a moment there just to give yourself a chance too. That's a lot. There's a lot of safety mechanisms in place for the visual audience. If you can see the PowerPoint Nicole has in front of us, we've got our zone coverage, we've got our rotations, we've got our instrument. So, to your point, Nicole, this is not a one-horse pony show that doesn't know what they're doing. This is a property that's invested in you. You've invested it, and then going over the rules, you've even made games up out of the rules. So again, my point is, even having doing this 4 years, you guys felt safe. You felt like you were doing all the right things.
Yeah.
And you were doing all the right things. Doesn't mean things can't happen. And I think it's important for the audience to know that you can be doing all the right things and wrong things can happen. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, we were doing all, and we weren't, some places I worked at, they don't read the rules every day.
Mm-hmm.
And some places don't put the cone up or a sign up when they close the diving board. They just assume if the guard's not there, the kids know the
You
diving
made no
board.
assumptions. I was
Yeah,
just about to, you made
right.
no assumptions.
Right.
Yeah, keep
Right.
going.
So
Yeah.
so I've closed the diving board, I've walked over and I'm in my whole, I have always taken lifeguarding. If you ask me to guard today, I'm gonna come guard ready. I'm gonna have my uniform on, my fanny pack, I'm gonna do everything, and I'm gonna guard today just as I did on that day. So I'm reading the rules, and I'm done reading the rules and the kids run. We just said no running, walking only, and the kids run to get in the pool. And now in hindsight, we thought we were doing the safest thing we could that day. And now that I look back, I thought it was so weird that the bleachers were right next to the lane lines in the deep end. And then the kids have to cross the lane lines in the deep end to get to the shallow end, to get their life jackets, to get in. But you can only improve one thing at a time. So
Right. Right.
and they're running. So they're running there. And the guards, I keep seeing on Facebook, lifeguards aren't babysitters, and guards know that. But the
Mm-hmm.
camp counselors back 20 years ago, camp counselors, I was excited they were on the deck putting the life jackets on the kids because where I came from, the lifeguard or the camp counselors thought it was break time and they were going to
Sure.
take their break or rotate on their break while we were on the pool deck because there were lifeguards. So, I was grateful the guards or the counselors were there, and the guards were guarding the water. And I just showed you guys the zone coverage. And the kids ran, got their life jackets on. And this was not day one. I think this was day 2 or day
Oh,
3.
great point.
And it wasn't week 1 of camp. I think it was like week 2 or week 3, but it was mid-June, not day 1. And they went to get their life jackets on, still read the rules, and they run. And if you guys are watching on the video, I've got a dot showing where the kids went. And then after the kids line up to get their life jackets on, and it's one counselor with the kids getting their life jacket, and they're lined up, and then I take my walk, and I go down past the lap lanes, and I pass the guard that's got zone 1, which is the whole pool. I pass guard 2. I am the youngest guard. At 21, I am the youngest guard. So I pass
Note.
I passed the senior guard, who's a retired guy. I passed the stay-at-home mom, or I think she was an army wife, so she wasn't a stay-at-home mom, but she was. We didn't have baby guards up or brand new guards.
There you
I
go.
passed her. She's got all the little, very similar to this photo. All these little kids right here. They just ran into the shallow end, and my journey ends right here. I'm not in the deep end, and I love statistics, and I love to tell people, we're not in the deep end. We're in the shallow end. And I put these up here. We have lifelines separating 3 feet from 4 feet, not separating 5 feet, but separating the differences in the water. So pool's crazy. You've got
There you go.
I think the whole camp came. So
All the
everybody,
emojis are there.
yes, all the kids in camp, not half the camp group, not just this age, all the camp kids, kindergarten through 5th are in the water. And the non-swimmers are in the smallest section, which is
Mm-hmm.
which is 3.5 feet of water. And they're having a great time. You got kids that aren't ready to get wet, you got kids that are ready to get wet, you got kids splashing, you got kids that don't want to get wet, you have everybody in the shallow end area. and you've got adequate guards. You have three guards right in this
Hmm.
small area, and a counselor. There was another
Yep.
counselor too, but I mean,
Structure is in place.
yeah, right,
And that's again for the audience to recognize and understand everything can be going right. And for 4 years, you had not seen it go wrong. You had not seen what we're about to get into. So while we may be prepared for it, it's important to understand that you can be prepared for everything, but you got to know what to do when things happen next.
right. And these are good zones. Like there's no
Yeah.
glare,
Oh, yeah.
glare. And I keep listening to Tom's podcast. This is clear water. You can see the
Hmm.
bottom. Like
Hmm.
these are all good things.
Yes. Great point.
So I've got my tube because I'm going to open the diving board. That's the other thing. I took my tube with me. I put a cone up. Some people will close the slide with a tube. I put my cone on the diving board to close it, and I kept my tube with me when I did my perimeter walk. So the counselor says to me, and the counselors got in and swam with the kids. I don't know where people are in life, but not all counselors get in and swim with the
True.
kids. And she says, "Hey, can you get that girl?" That's exactly verbatim. 20 years later, that's what she said.
Sounds like a 1960s pop song.
Yeah, hey, can you get that girl? So,
Right.
and I'm like, what girl? Because there's how many girls? Like, what girl are we talking about?
Right.
And she has goggles in her hand, and I see this girl face down right in front of me. So I assume it must be this girl who doesn't have goggles on, right? She's the one that needs goggles because you have goggles. Logical reasoning here, deduction.
Hmm.
This is what you want.
And there was no, and again, it was just, can you get the girl? There was no alert or alarm from the counselor to your point of triggering you to say what's next. Yeah.
Right. Hey, can you get that girl? And to backtrack, we do swim tests. We did them on Monday. And it's the responsibility of the counselors, because there's no parents, to put the non-swimmers in life jackets. And that's what I think happens, because that's what's supposed to happen.
And that's what's happened before, correct? It's consistently happened in the right way.
Well, and everybody just got their life jackets on, and half the kids are in with their life jackets. So, I now know who we're talking about. We're talking about this girl right here, and I am standing on deck. I have my tube in my hand. I reach out with my tube. I tap the girl on the shoulder. She rolls over almost instantly. Like I tap her, and she just
Hmm.
flips, and she's face up and head back. So,
Hmm.
those of you that do lifeguard training, when you're a good
Hmm.
victim and when you're a bad victim. She was chin up, mouth up, nose up, eyes were underwater,
Big eyes.
forehead was underwater, eyes were open, color on the face was gone, lips
Hmm.
were blue, and I immediately adrenaline went like
Hmm.
skyrocketed because a minute ago this was a swimmer that needed her goggles. No worry and nothing in my body thought she was not okay. Now
Sure.
she is not okay, and panic just set in. And this is the first time I've made a rescue. I've been a lifeguard for 4 years, and this is the first time I've made a rescue. And I just reacted. There was no emergency action plan. There was no whistle point. There was oh my gosh, oh my,
Uh-huh.
and I just jumped in. But I don't even know where the other kids were. Right now, it was me and this girl, and I jumped in, and shoes on. I remember my shoes on. I remember jumping in with my shoes on, and I grabbed her and I did the Heimlich. And I'm looking straight at the guard whose zone she's in, and I am not a happy human that she had this happen in her zone. And I do the Heimlich, and then in my brain I'm running through the entire of what I should have done. Like I'm like, well, I should have
Ah.
whistled pointed. I know that we need to get her out. I know that we're going to do CPR like I've done in service 4 hours a
Hmm.
day or 4 hours a month for the last 4 years of my life. I
Right.
got the whole thing, and I wasn't at the time. I was not a lifeguard instructor, but I had been a lifeguard, and I'd done training a lot.
Hmm.
And I get to the
You've
edge
made
of
this jump before with a practice victim many times, I'm assuming.
yes, yes,
Yeah. Yep.
but we didn't have dummies back then, so it was always partners.
True.
And
True.
I
True.
get to the edge of the deck, and the girl's there, but she doesn't have a backboard. And when I say the girl's there, my guard, my teammate was there,
Yep.
and the pool's not cleared. All the kids are still in the pool. And I
Hmm.
pick up this girl, and she weighs, in my mind, she weighed 1,000,000 pounds. Like I lift
Sure.
her up onto the deck, and in my mind, she's still gone, like she was a minute ago. And I lift myself up like you do to get out of the pool, and she's fine.
She's
So
fine.
yeah, so like 3 seconds ago, she was not, and right now she is, and my brain cannot, I just can't, I don't know
And
what happened.
and 10 minutes prior to that, you were getting 10 seconds prior to that, you were getting a girl of goggles. So from that to now she's fine to that 20 seconds in the middle, that's a big jump for anybody.
Yeah, and yes, so this mental
Yeah.
roller coaster I'm on, and I look at the girl, my guard, and I say, I can't figure it out. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, I just probably have this dumbfounded look on my face. And she
Mm-hmm.
says, well, she threw up water when you did that. And I'm like, did what? Like, what are you talking about? I still need
No.
you to like draw on the board that 2 + 2 = 4. I'm like, when she did what? She's like, when
Sure.
she did the Heimlich, she threw up water. And then it dawned on me that I had done the Heimlich and she probably did throw up water, but we were in the water. So how would I
Mm-hmm.
know she threw up water? But the my guard saw me because I was staring right at her when I did it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we get out, and I don't know what happened to time here. I don't know where the kids went. I have no idea what anything did because my adrenaline is still so high.
Sure.
And so now we end up. So I skip everything as I told you.
Yeah.
So we end up in the boss's office immediately, and really fast too.
Oh.
So now, as it always is in aquatics, it's counselors versus aquatics, or counselors
And you're
aquatics
probably
versus everybody all the time.
and and when you're in that office, just to kind of give the audience a reset here, because I mean I've jumped in over 250 times. Most of them are like that, where I thought it was bigger than it wasn't. So probably I didn't have to jump in all those times. But point being is every time it ended up with me wet in a swimsuit in an office, dripping with maybe a towel, maybe not, and then a timer to go. You got to get back in your chair, or you don't. Or in a case like this, when things are actually taking a break and have to have a moment of reset, now it's less about getting the chair and more about, oh my God, they're okay, and who did what wrong, and all those things. And I just want to give you the chance to reset, also because we've all been through that, and we've all experienced that emotionally and to some degree. How did you get through that? What was it like, knowing that you had all these faces in front of you, knowing you had somebody that actually was okay, but you can't conjure up the fact that the child's okay? Where were you at? How did you get through that?
So that was rough. So I was in that office, and this is the first time I'd been in the office wet. Now, I mean,
Sure.
everybody in aquatics has now been in the boss's office wet because I can't count the number of times I've been in the office standing
Dry.
either in my clothes or in a bathing suit, but in a puddle of water, like I'm making the puddle of water in the CEO's office
Right, right.
with an upset lap swimmer or an upset water aerobics or with upset other departments yelling at you like they always do because I'm not enforcing whatever rule we've just conjured up, and I'm here trying to keep peace. But on this day, I'm standing there and I don't know where our aquatic director was at the time. I don't know if she was on maternity leave or if she just wasn't there, but I felt so alone in this moment. One,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't act as a team in this mission at all. And I've always been
Mm-hmm.
an aquatic team. So it was when I made that rescue, we didn't respond as a team. When I got her out, I didn't feel like we were a team. And I was so confused with how my team had this happen. And then it was the counselors versus the lifeguards.
There you go. Yeah.
And they're all pointing blame at me. And I am like, whoa, 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 whoa. I am the one that I'm the hero. I just saved your
I'm
girl.
I have the wet bathing suit. Look at me. I have the wet bathing suit.
I'm the
Yeah.
one. I am wet here. I'm not the victim, but I am the one that you. Why are you guys all yelling at me? And that's what I felt like. I felt like the little kid while mom and dad are yelling. And you're like, but what is it my fault?
Mm-hmm. Sure, sure.
And then all of course, I don't know what the boss was doing that day, but he's like, "Why are you guys in here? Like, what
Right.
happened?" Because no
The
one
kid's
has.
okay.
Yeah, no one's
Because
called
yeah.
911 because nobody even
Bingo.
understands what's happened. And the girl's fine, and she probably wants to get back. She's probably back in the pool. I don't know. I'm still in
Right.
this mind warp. She's probably swimming and having a great time. I don't know. And the boss wants to know what happened, and the counselors are still mad. The counselors are blaming aquatics, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm blaming aquatics, and I am aquatics. And I'm cold, and that office is the AC is cranking, and I am
Mm.
shirt, suit, pants, and that AC. It was cold. It was cold in that office that day, and everybody was pointing their fingers at me. And I don't know how you get your adrenaline down because my adrenaline was up for 42 hours.
Well, and I think that's why we're doing this interview, to be transparent, and why it's a good time to talk about that emotion and that experience. We often go into blame game. We often go into whose fault is it. We often go into what did I do wrong internally. If we didn't react, should I have reacted? And I think you're bringing up a lot of things that could we have jumped in better? Could we have done our whistle better? Yes, yes, yes. Are there organizations in this country that pride themselves on teaching that? Yes. But also, if you've spent 4 years of your life being the youngest individual on the team and no one's ever sat you down and said, did you know this could happen? Did you know what it's going to feel like when it does happen? And here's when it does happen. Here's what we're going to do for you when it happens, whether it's a freezing cold office or whether it's getting you off a shift or whether it's having an extra towel. And again, as I said when we started this discussion, I encourage the audience to remember, right? I started in the mid 90s, Nicole a little bit after that. Nobody sat us down and said it's going to be okay. They said rub some Robitussin on it and get back out there,
And I did. I
right?
was back on the
And
stand
you
that
did,
day.
yeah. So that's where my next point was: is what happened after that? You're in your towel, you're in your wet shoes, Did you Where'd you go from there? What was the next 48 hours like for you?
So again, it was a total blur, and I don't know what happened. I know that after I left the office, I guarded for the rest of the day because when I got off that day, I called my boss from my first job, the job
Oh
that
wait,
I
can
had.
I
Yeah.
tell me only because I'm a horrible interview. I'll be Jason Bateman from SmartList and interrupt randomly. You said you called your boss.
Yes.
I want to double down on that. I would argue that you called somebody you knew
So,
because no one ever told you who to call or how to get help. And I'm not calling, right?
right.
You, as a 21-year-old who's never done this before, you just call somebody who you trusted slash respected slash knew.
Yes.
It happened to be your old boss. Is
It
that
is
a fair statement?
right. Well, I called my old boss. I'll tell you right now, she's my boss. She was my first boss. She is going to carry the title as my boss. She has not been my boss in decades.
Fair
She
enough.
probably doesn't know that she's my boss. She was my first boss.
We all have them.
And I'm going to credit her for who I am today. And I called her because she made me who I was on that day.
There
And
you
I
go.
didn't have a leader on that day.
There you
Like I said,
go.
I don't know. I have no idea where my boss was, my acting boss was
That
that
boss.
day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where that boss was. And so I obviously didn't talk to that boss. And I had to go out and I had to guard because we did. We threw some dirt on it and got right back out there. And camp
Mhm.
was there all day. It was a busy day at the pool, and the pool was open. And the pool wasn't
Camp's not
just open
going
for
away.
camp. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
big pool. It was an L-shaped pool, and we had stuff going on all day. And I guarded for the rest of the day, and that was fine. I mean, I was probably really good because my adrenaline was so high, I was ready to go the whole time.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know
Yeah,
what I saw because I don't even remember now what I saw. But I
right.
talked to her, and when I got on the phone with her, we were 5 hours away. I lived 5 hours away from her. I called her and I told her the whole story, told her everything that happened. And I remember I think I was shaking. Like
Oh, of
I was
course.
ready to go. I don't know if I talked to her the day after. And I went back to work the next day. I worked that
Yeah,
day. I went back to work the next day because I wasn't gonna not lifeguard. Like why would I not
right.
lifeguard?
You don't know anything else,
I
right?
don't. Well, and I
Yeah.
don't. And who's gonna read the rules to the kids? Hopefully my
In
rotation
your
is in the
way.
right rotation. I get to go read the rules to the kids again. Yeah. And the counselors I think were still mad at us because it was still it's still our fault.
Well, and I think you use the word fault and blame, and that's something we talk a lot about in this industry. And again, the court has their version of it, and I've done trial witness expert work, but also real life has their version of it. You have to see these people tomorrow. You have to see the person that was your boss on paper and in real life the next day. And I think that's another point of this discussion and leading into you're doing this years later. You're still in your young 20s. So that's really impacted you. You now have a nonprofit, you have a podcast, you go to national conferences, you have a swim school, you have a full-time job. I believe your family also works with you, if I recall correctly, in your work. How did this affect you, other than the 5, 7 things that I listed in your life that you work, but mentally and emotionally, and how you go about your day? What's this led to? And we'll get to the clinical stuff in a minute, but how has this impacted you on that scale?
Um, I think I didn't know that it could happen until that.
Check.
Um, I knew it happened, but I didn't think that it
Mm-hmm.
could happen. Just like everybody goes, well, it's not going to happen to me. It's not
Not
going to
gonna happen to
happen here.
me.
And you go to conference and they tell you it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. I really didn't think it could happen. And where I came from, it hadn't happened. So
Great
maybe it
point.
still hasn't happened there, but it happened to me, and I didn't think it was going to happen to me. So I go to work every day, regardless if, when my boys were younger, I would teach aerobics and I would teach lifeguarding, but I didn't guard, but I was a guard. I kept my guard certificate current because once I got it back,
You'll never let it
I'll never
expire.
lose it. Yes.
Yeah.
And so when they'd call and they'd say, "Can you come guard?" Even if I'm guarding for 30 minutes or 2 hours or a whole shift, if I'm guarding, I'm guarding. And it's not. I never It always is important.
It's a great statement.
Yeah, if I'm covering for you because you need to go to the bathroom, it's always important the whole time. And I teach that when I teach people. And I don't care who you are or where you are. I tell you what I know and I share it with you because that's what happened to me, and I don't want it to happen to anybody else ever.
I think that is so huge. We've all, whatever role you've had, I've been executive director. It doesn't matter what I've had or what role you've had as a listening audience. I believe anybody listening to this has momentarily said, "I'll watch the water for you." Has momentarily said, "Go take a bathroom break." Has momentarily said, I, "I'll stand." I might be in my khakis. I might be in a business suit. I might be in my skivvies. Either way, I'm watching the water. And I think what you said is so important, Nicole, is that when we actually turn to another person, we say, "I've got the
That's
water for you." What does that really mean? It means you might jump in with your shoes as a 21-year-old who's never experienced this before, or it means that that person leaving the chair has to feel comfortable. And I think it's a great takeaway for all of us that just randomly and obscurely say, "I'll watch 5 minutes for you. I'll look over the window for you. I'll scan the water for you." Well, what are you really saying yes to? What you're saying yes to is what you've unpacked a little bit here, Nicole, and we're going to get to some of uh, the follow-up action items and what was or was not in place here in a second. But I think that's a big takeaway as an audience member here is when you say, "I'm going to watch the water for you," you better mean it.
you better mean it. Yeah.
Yeah. So leading into that, afterwards, we've talked a lot about follow-ups and in this generation, Nicole, you and I have worked with groups and organizations that have meetings and trainings and group meetings and one-on-one meetings and how do we recover and how do we do better? But what was your experience with that?
How do I do better?
Yeah, what looked good, what was good that day and what wasn't good, and then in comparison to 20 years later.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what looked good that day. And I think we talked about it a
Yes.
little bit when I was setting the stage. But what looked good that day to bystanders or just the people at the
Yeah,
pool
yeah.
is we didn't have, the young men that are just playing or that don't take it seriously. I mean, you would think
Or
that people
women, but
there.
it's totally 100% young
Right,
men. I own it.
right.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like,
yes,
but yeah.
I've had the girls playing too, but you've had experienced guards, and maybe
Yes.
they weren't experienced, but they were older, they were more mature, so you feel like they're experienced. You could have some boys that were better, but we looked experienced. We had adequate zone coverage, so if you were auditing us, we might have looked really good. We had life jackets for our non-swimmers, and some places think that's good, some places think that's not. We did swim test. We didn't do them on day 2, but some pools do, some pools don't. We had those lifelines that are separating depths. That's important in some counties. And we had the camp counselors on deck. Back in the 90s, sometimes the camp counselors were gone. They weren't even there.
Ha!
Yeah.
The bus would jump. And before we, well, you also, every regulation that the state required, you bet every health department, every records, that's another layer to this is you got to meet those first
Yep.
and then you got to apply to your property. So again, while we didn't show it in the slide, that doesn't mean they weren't missed. So that's a whole nother layer of all the signage
Of
and
what was
check
happening,
boxes
right? Of what was
that we
happening.
met.
We
Yeah.
were open.
So
So we passed everything to be open.
bingo.
Sure did.
Exactly.
Sure
Right.
did. And then
So
what was
yeah, what
wrong?
maybe didn't go right? Yeah.
So what I think went wrong, so even though all that looked good, what I feel went wrong on that day is there was poor surveillance. So those guards were there, and I wasn't on surveillance duty yet. I was walking to my stand, and I was still scanning, even though I mean, I guess I was more doing rule enforcement, like I was scanning the deck as I was walking to the diving board. But the 2 guards in zone 1 and zone 2, they clearly were doing poor surveillance, or they would have saw what happened occurring. So I would say they were doing poor surveillance, and I don't even know what their surveillance was. And I think this was back in the 90s when the book had the A and the B. And scanning changes a lot over the decades.
Well, that's how I remember my alphabet. So let's not
Yeah.
shortchange that because
Well,
my anyway. But yeah,
I know there was
but
a
you're
lot of
right. That's what
enforcement.
we were taught. That's
Yeah,
exactly what we were taught.
and I know there was lack of enforcement because I don't know where our boss was, and the fact that we had older guards on, they felt that the enforcement or the management wasn't a needed role because we had mature staff. And when you
Sure.
lose that leadership role, I think that hurt us. And again, I felt great. I thought we looked great, but if you don't have somebody enforcing what's happening, you see what happened. And then
Hmm.
understanding the purpose of the rule. So Not that
Great.
the, I mean, I think that's both on the guards that were in the stand, because that was a, I didn't mention this, but if you were looking at the map, it's there where the girl was in an overlap zone. So guard one and guard two were overlapping the zone where I touched the girl. So if I would have walked away, she was in their zone. Um,
Everybody has it. Nobody has it, right?
yeah, everybody has it. Nobody has it. So did the guards understand the purpose of double zone coverage? Did the counselor understand the
Bingo.
purpose of her putting the life jacket on the girl? Um, so
Why
that's
we
what,
have the rule is as important as the rule itself.
yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's what went wrong on that day.
Yeah. And then that led to some of the things here. Again, in the slide, if you're able to watch, if you're just listening, I would encourage you to take a few minutes and jump on YouTube and see some of the visuals because it's really important. Some of the components and topics that lead into this, right? So, what did that bring you emotionally and mentally, Nicole, after this happened? And what are some of the things we've learned over the decades?
Uh, well, what I have seen this that day, and when I looked down at her, she wasn't actively drowning. So when I looked at her, I wasn't looking for someone drowning or active or even passive. I was looking for somebody who needed their goggles. So I wasn't
Yeah.
ready to save anybody or jump in. I thought the girl was going to reach out and get her goggles and keep swimming. So that cognitive dissociation,
Dissonance,
dissonance.
seeing the jacket in the pool and saying there's no way that's my kid's jacket when you put that jacket on your kid that morning. Cognitive dissonance, not wanting to believe what you see.
Yeah, I did. We did, and we that happens. I've done water aerobics, and I've had people that were distressed, and I was in a really good team, and I was a guard, but I was in front of 25 women, and I couldn't, hop, skip, jump over them. So I'm looking, and I don't want to alarm 25 women,
Hmm.
So I'm looking at the guard, and I'm looking at the person. I'm looking at the guard. I'm looking at the person. The guard's like, everybody looks like they're doing water aerobics. Why are you,
Right.
why are you motioning me like this? And my guards were great. I had a guard one time that was going from the outdoor pool to the indoor pool, and I'm looking at, no, I didn't, on this one, I didn't even communicate with him. This lady had taken her dumbbells and she had gone back to the deep end. He jumped in, touched her bottom, and pushed her back to the shallow end. No tube. He was just on his break, and he
Because
jumped
he
in.
knew.
Yeah, he knew.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is great guarding, and that was just perfect timing. And another guy I had this guy. He had brain surgery like a week ago. He was 92. He had his dumbbells, and he did the same thing. He got too deep, and he would not let go of his dumbbells, and he is panicked. And I see the panic on his face.
Hmm.
And I'm
Hmm.
looking at the guard, and the guard's looking at me, and I'm like, "Are you gonna get him?" And he's like, "Everybody looks like they're great," and I'm like, "Yeah, he's not great. Get him." And he got him. So I mean, but sometimes people look
Yeah.
what they are, and you don't know what to accept.
Absolutely.
And
And the,
sometimes it's your kid, and you're like, no, my kid's not drowning. That's definitely not my kid at the bottom of the pool.
right. And these are terms back in our day, or when we first started out, we just were learning about, or even Dr. Thomas Griffiths and others were just learning, scratching the surface, and now they're regular vernacular, and such as the normalcy bias.
Yeah, well, and the normalcy bias I think was in the girl whose zone I was in. She had the shallow end. Obviously somebody else is going to see that it's happening, or like the
Right.
counselor, my son did the same thing. He had to be rescued in a double zone coverage. It was a pool with zero depth, and it got deeper, and the guard, I think they talk about this a lot in statistics, the guard, he was in the outside realm, so that he was
Hmm.
right in front of this guard didn't see him, but this guard was like, get him, and he did. So I mean,
Yeah.
these are all great things to talk about in service training, but they're things that we need to bring up and talk about with our guards.
Just
Care
just because
about.
it yeah, just because it, and then not that we won't go through all these quickly, but just because it hasn't happened in your pool doesn't mean it can't happen. Number one, I think that's a big takeaway. And two is, how are you reviewing each piece of this as we look at cognitive dissonance, as we look at normalcy, as we look at zone coverage, and we
Yes.
break each one of these down? You don't have to have a near drowning or almost drowning or any of these instances to review this information and prepare your team week by week, piece by piece to say, yeah, it hasn't happened here yet, but how do we prevent it from happening? And so I think these are great subject matters to dig deeper into,
Yeah.
one at a time, because they all have a relationship to this incident, I believe.
Yeah, well, we could do great. Yeah, more stuff with all of these. The zone overlap though, that one always makes me think of water watchers or parents in backyard pools. Mom
Hmm.
thinks dad's watching, dad thinks mom's watching, or yeah, I had a good friend. She doesn't want to come on my podcast yet. I'm waiting till she wants to. She might never want to, but she had her birthday party, and I was at her birthday party, and I left. And shortly after I left, her son had to be life flighted to one of our children's hospitals. She thought her sister-in-law was watching, and her sister-in-law didn't think that it was her job to watch. Like they were both in the pool together, but it's that zone overlap, and that's why I'm such an advocate for the water watcher lanyards.
Yeah.
That zone, that's a true thing. If you think you're watching and I think I'm watching, same thing for lifeguards, same thing for parents, and that's why I think Tom talks about if you have a party or you have any gathering in your backyard, hire a lifeguard because this is what more
One.
people, yeah, more people, less people are watching because everybody
Yeah.
assumes somebody else is watching.
And to that point, and I have an office full, and you do too, of all different organizations and companies that have water watcher tags. My takeaway to that is one water watcher. If you don't have a tag, get a piece of paper. I don't want five water watchers. I want one token, one medal, one tag, and it's handed off. So that way, that to your point, there's no confusion of who the water. It's the person holding the dunce cap. It's the person wearing the sign. That's the person, nobody else. And you're right. It's recognizing and instilling that value and that clarity and accountability. But yeah.
So to go back on your question, I think the event when I was 21, right when I was 21, I became the aquatics coordinator. So I might have that event might have made me become leadership in aquatics.
There you go.
Because watching that happen is what changed how I do our not our preseason training. So
Hmm.
on our slide it says the myth of splashing versus struggling, and that kid wasn't splashing and that kid wasn't struggling. And when I do my
It's a
training
great line.
with my staff or camp, sometimes I'll go and I'll talk to camp, or if I'm asked to talk to camp, or I'm just talking to the lifeguards before the pool opens for the season, or camp starts coming to the pool if you're already open all year. We talk about, I play the video from the little boy, I think in Ireland or Iceland, and he's in the river, and I like to play it twice because I play it once and I don't say anything, and then
Hmm.
and then I play it the second time, and on the second time everyone in the room knows. And when everyone in the room knows, they can't sit still, that nobody is recognizing what's happening for six
Hmm.
minutes. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know now, but on the first
Right.
time you didn't know. And when everybody assumes it's help me, help me. I mean, real people, I can't tread and wave my arms. I mean, I can for
Right.
maybe 2 seconds, but I'm treading and waving. I'm not a water polo player.
Fair. And on the opposite end, we're now learning about, go to Britt Jackson and underwater hypoxia and the dead man's float. Like, so my point is there's a big scale to this and understanding what you're seeing. Are they doing the dead man's float, which I know is an oxymoronic term and don't I pretend like it,
Yep.
but that as well as struggling versus splashing. I can tell you for a fact, I have a permanent hairline fracture in my left elbow. That's a fact for jumping in and rescuing a kid who was not drowning and in a swim lesson. And that instructor still laughs at me because I cracked my elbow on the deck. But the kid was struggling,
Yep.
but he was learning because I
Yep.
was too aggressive and I didn't want to give him the chance to swim. So there's a really good point in understanding these differences and watching swim lessons, watching classes, getting that feel for are they struggling, are they not, and how do I react? I think it's a spot on point.
It is. It's a very good point. Very
Yeah.
good point. The bystander effect. That's similar. Yep.
Good. And as we continue through this, again, there's a lot of materials here. And if you want a copy of it, Nicole will get it to you and you'll be able to download this. But also, let's talk about, if you can, Nicole, what have you seen in here we go. Let me rephrase. So I'm part of ILSERA, the International Lifeguarding Critical Incident Association, and the nonprofit that is designed to bring support and awareness for lifeguards that are involved in a critical incident, from uh, psychological first aid to being on the site to taking phone calls to providing resources and education. We didn't have this 20 years ago, Nicole. We didn't have anybody saying, it's okay, we're here for you. How do you feel? I'm going to forget all my psychological first training steps. So, Tyler Anderson, don't yell at me. But none of it existed in the format. Tell me about your experience with this then and with this now. What did you go through that wasn't there for you? Let me rephrase. When this happened to you when you were 21, what was missing? What didn't you have? What resources, what support was not there?
I didn't have any support. So I think now it's covered in the lifeguarding manual, and they tell you what to talk about with your staff and how to support your staff. And I think now management has a better role in helping the staff if and when these events happen. Back then, there was nothing. Like I said, I stood in the boss's office. Blame was pointed on me. I went right back to work. There was nobody to talk to, and I came back to work the next day. That was it. No, to this day, this is the first time, besides calling my old boss, that this has been publicly talked about ever, ever.
Minus maybe even an incident report if one was filled out, because sometimes those aren't even viewed as incidents because there was no 911 called or no traumatic fair.
Right, the kid was fine. Why would we have called anybody? They're good
Right.
now. Yeah.
Back in my day, and again, I worked at water parks in different environments, but we jumped in so often or were getting first aid so often that we didn't have enough paper to report on. We had people passing out in line sorting a water park that we would just stand out there with a guard and water so we didn't have to write it all down.
No, this was a
Well,
yeah.
they choked, they threw up, they passed out. And so that's kind of what my point was, is in the eyes of that property and that organization, and less about who it is, they might not have even seen this as a traumatic event, let alone think there is a need to have support for the individuals involved.
Yeah, well, I don't think this was a traumatic event. I think you got to be a lifeguard because that was the Baywatch thing to do, and you're lucky that this happened. Good for you.
Right.
I'm glad you did that. Isn't that what you signed up for? Great job. Yeah,
But
no, this was not
yeah,
traumatic. Isn't this what you wanted? Yeah,
right. 20 minutes ago, you were complaining about being hot and it was too sunny out. You got to
right,
cool off for free.
right. And
And
you did your skills.
yeah,
That's why we pay you.
right. I hope the audience knows we're being sarcastic right now.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
absolute sarcasm. This is heavy, heavy stuff. Yes,
but
and this is why this
those
organization exists, and we want you to take care of your
right.
staff. And if you don't, we want your staff to know Wes and I and this entire organization exists because you're not
Yeah.
alone.
And but the truth is those words were said to you and they were said to me, is get back in the chair. This child's okay. You can't go home. We need you.
And
It's
come back
okay to be
tomorrow.
and come back and do, whatever you do, come back tomorrow because three other people just quit. And I think that's a really big, important lesson for this audience member is yeah, we want you to come back tomorrow because you're dedicated to the industry, but also the industry is different. There is recognition of what is real trauma. There is recognition that lifeguards are first responders, as it said, in many ways. There is recognition that you as a human, Nicole, went through something. Your team, to the bystander effect, may have gone through something. Every time I jumped in, whether I needed to or not, the guards next to me watched. Every time I watched them jump in and legitly have to put somebody in backboard or had a bloody face, I had to go, what would I do right now? Am I prepared for this? And I think there's a very big butterfly effect that has happened over the last few decades for people in our generation that are trying to get to the next generation and trying to get to the next group and say, hey, it's a little different now. We can help you. You don't have to hide your feelings. You don't have to be afraid of shaking. We might not be able to, give you a week off of work, but we can give you a phone number. We can give you a hotline. I can get you in front of some professionals, and there's resources. And I think that's, for me, for you, that's important. But I also know what was missing for you, and that breaks my heart.
Yeah,
So,
it does. Well, I
yeah.
really appreciate you giving me this hour and this time, and
Oh, of
I'm
course.
glad we get it out there for everybody else.
And to wrap it up, my last question would be, what's something somebody can learn from if this happened to somebody today, and they were 21, and it happened to them in 4 years. What would you say to them? How would you help them if they were in your shoes when you were in your shoes?
Well, I would tell them don't not talk about it. I mean, definitely, I think they need to talk about it.
Check.
It's okay. It's okay not to go to work. It's okay to take the week off, to change the job. There's a lot of blame pushed on you, and you don't have
Mhm.
to go back to work or get back in the stand that day. You might not be ready. And to reach
Right.
out to the International Lifeguard Critical Incident Response Alliance. I'm sure they have a website, and they have great training.
Oh, we do.
They have tons of people.
Ilsera.org. Yeah.
You have tons of people that are going to help you, and your employer should be helping you. And if they're not properly trained or equipped, this is a nonprofit that is. So there's great resources now. And if your heart's still in aquatics and you want to stay there, it might not saying that that's what needs to happen, but it could be the beginning of your story or a chapter in your story. So I want to
It's a great
close
point.
on saying that don't wait for a tragedy like this to teach you what matters. You want to practice your skills like someone's life depends on it, because it does.
Mhm.
So if you're thinking about skipping in service and not going, or you're thinking about not swimming today because you don't want to, make
Mhm.
sure you stay up to par and you're whistle worthy and come in your uniform,
Mhm.
because your job is important and people are relying on you. Speak up and stay engaged. Even if you've been through something like this, it's okay to talk about it. And there are people who will listen. I'm sure if you
Mhm.
don't know Wes and I and you just send us a private message, I have no doubt that we're just going to respond and talk to you.
We'll be there. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will be there. You don't even have to know who we are. Just send the message and we'll message you back. And we can't wait to create a change. Or yeah, don't stay silent. Say something. Find
Say something.
somebody. Somebody will listen. This story has forever changed me, and now I'm using it to help change others. So
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Nicole. This has just been honest and open, and I appreciate it. And to your point, if you're hearing the story and you have a message and you want to be heard and you're struggling, reach out and ask for help because it's there now. So
yes,
thank you, everybody, and
yes.
look forward to all the fun water safety events everybody will be doing.
Absolutely. You guys have a safe summer. Again, no drownings. And don't forget, you can be a guest if you want to. Reach out. Take care.